You like vintage cards. You
Yeah.
don't like Pokemon. Yet you just looked at a chart that shows you the returns on Pokemon.
Yeah.
And you could be spending all your time racking your brain as to why you're not making that move, but instead you're going deep on the thing that you believe and know is right, and you're seeing the compounding rewards of that. And you need to actively go out of your way to not get off that lane.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of the Gordy Bonker Show. Guys, this week I am so excited about my special guest, Tyler Schmitt, fellow Penn State alum, as well as vice president over at VaynerX. Tyler has an incredible career path, and I can't wait for you guys to learn more about him, as well as to get a little bit more of insight into what he views the collectible industry as and his own personal collecting philosophy. Tyler has been a lifelong collector of many different things. We got into it a little bit talking about Pokemon and the rise of alternative asset investing. And we even got into it a little bit with Bitcoin for anybody who's interested in cryptocurrency. I think you will find this conversation to be super fascinating. But before we get there, I just want to give a quick intro into the interview. I want to give the shout out of my card of the week. This week, the card of the week is the 1909 Ty Cobb Green Portrait. Guys, I recently sold this card to a client that is a new client looking to invest into high-end vintage sports cards. And one of the big items on his checklist was to get all four of the different Ty Cobb poses and portraits. He also wanted a couple of different 1933 Gaudi cards. I'm super excited to be working with him. This 1909 Green Portrait Ty Cobb, though, it's a beautiful example. Mid-grade, very difficult to locate for mid-grades on the Green Portrait card. I was super excited to land this for him. And the 1909 T206 Ty Cobb, your card of the week. Very excited about that. Me and Tyler get into it a little bit in the interview as well, talking about our golf round last week. So you'll see me rocking the Upper Montclair Country Club polo in this interview. Upper Montclair Country Club is Tyler's home course. It is a gorgeous golf course. I absolutely loved getting to play with him. The week before we recorded, we actually played around against each other. We put up some cards as a little bit of a friendly wager. I unfortunately lost my 1933 Sport Kings Walter Hagen. So next time I'm out there, I'm going to try to get Tyler to put that up as a wager to win it back. But it was an awesome time. I'm so thankful for Tyler and the time we spent on the podcast. You can check out all of Tyler's info at Tyler on Instagram. Check him out. And let's jump into this episode, man. It's going to be an awesome one. Today's guest sits right at the intersection of social media, culture, and collectibles. Mr. Tyler Schmitt. Tyler has spent the past decade at VaynerX, where he's played a major role in the growth and evolution of one of the most influential media companies in the world, alongside one of the most influential content creators and entrepreneurs in the world, Gary Vee. Gary Vaynerchuk Tyler served as Gary Vaynerchuk's personal assistant and had a front row seat to the fast-paced world of content branding and entrepreneurship. Today, Tyler serves as the vice president of core relationships at VaynerX, where he focuses on building partnerships, managing key relationships, and driving cultural relevance across the entire Vayner ecosystem. He's also the host of Card Talk, a collectibles-focused podcast and content brand that blends his passion for the hobby with a deep understanding of modern media and community building. Please welcome to the Gordy Bonker Show, Mr. Tyler Schmitt. What is up, Tyler?
What's up, Gordy? Thank you for having me. What an intro. Love that.
Man, let me tell
Welcome
you.
to me and my green screen here. Amazon web servers are definitely proving. I feel like Amazon stock should be up today.
Yeah, I think it is.
It should be, because they're realizing it runs everything, you know?
Yes. As we talk right now, Amazon stock is up $3.50 a share.
Beautiful.
As the world realizes that it is incredibly important for streaming. So we're doing this
Correct.
podcast on Zoom today. We usually do it on StreamYard, but we're having a little bit of technical
So
difficulty.
you use Riverside, I think.
Yes, Riverside. That's correct.
Yeah. Just got to make sure your plug is right there, you know?
Exactly. Thank you very much for that. Well,
It's a nice polo you have on.
yes, as my audience knows, I'm a huge golf fan, as are you. I every week record in a different golf polo. It's become like one of my favorite things to do when I go to new courses is pick up the polo, pick up the golf ball. It's really been like what's been scratching my collector itch lately.
Mm-hmm.
And last week you and I got to go out to your club, Upper Montclair Country Club, which is what I'm rocking here. And dude, I had such a good time, man. That course is amazing.
That was a blast, and we had about as beautiful day as you can get in the middle of October. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was fun. I have my winnings here from our wager. We got some good content out of it.
I'm licking my wounds still. That Walter
Just
Hagen.
had to make sure you knew it's in safe hands still.
Well, the next time we play, I'm gonna be trying to itch to get something cool like that back.
That's exactly right. Can't wait for round two.
I wish I played better. I had such an awesome day. I have such an appreciation for fall golf now. I just absolutely love this time of year. I mean, I've always been a boy summer. I don't mind the heat, but a day like that was awesome. Just weird for me. I had the hooks. I never pull drives. I couldn't get the ball in fairway. And if you're starting off bad off the tee, it's very hard to recover.
Yeah, that's true. I just try to hit it as long as I can. You know that. Just
Yeah.
distance.
Get the ball deep down there and then change the yeah, I mean when you're hitting into greens with shorter irons versus longer irons, it's such an advantage if you can have those dialed. But that wasn't the first time we met. I actually wanted to bring up the first time we met because I think, it is a good example of who you are as a person. And last week even further cemented that just walking around the club, everybody wants to be your boy. Like you are the mayor of that place, which was super cool to see. But I didn't bring this up to you when we played last week, but I want to share this with my audience because when we first met, you were hosting Card Talk and you guys had an event at Bleecker Street. I'm not sure if you remember this or
I
not.
remember, yeah.
And this was in 2023. I was still working at my job. I was a financial service recruiter in New York City. And I had been following you and your content for a while, just kind of admiring you from afar. You guys had posted that you were going to be there. And I was kind of going back and forth because I don't have any friends, especially at this time of my life, that are in the hobby space. About an hour, 20 away, I'm like talking to my wife. I'm like, should I just take a train in there and see these guys? And I ultimately get myself to do it. I go in there and I see you and Ryan, card collector too, your other buddy Lou. And I was honestly a little nervous. I didn't know anyone there. And I walked up to you and we had an amazing conversation. I remember you had a night, you were showing me pictures of like an 85 Jordan. It was
Interlake,
what was that?
the big Interlake.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And, you and I probably spoke for like 10, 15 minutes and you gave me a lot of time, but the sincerity that you had and just your genuine kindness to me, I remember walking out of there being super energized and excited. Like, I had met somebody that saw eye to eye with me on stuff. I was just excited to be kind of around card people, but you were everything as advertised. And I just wanted to say thank you for showing me kindness in that moment because it kept me inspired to keep building. And, I had zero following and no space in the hobby at this time yet. I was just trying to learn. And flash forward a few years now, I'm still very small in the grand scheme of things, but I feel like I have a place here. And,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you for that moment because it
I
was,
appreciate that, man. I really do remember it. And I remember seeing your content and your approach. And, for work, I have this weird position. I work at one of the leading ad agencies in the world for one of the leading entrepreneur CEOs in the world. And over the past 12 years, I've had a variety of different roles, kind of that all stemmed from being Gary's admin and his assistant, frankly. And have you seen the movie Entourage, Lloyd, like the assistant to like you're in the mix, and
right.
I learned so much, and you know I think that a lot of what I do now, what I would describe as partnerships and business development, but also brand reputation and ambassadorship. And so I spend a lot of my time looking at creators, looking at businesses, whether that's from a collaboration standpoint, how we can work with them, how our clients can work with people or brands or things that generally fit into and mold and shape culture in some ways. And it's weird because it's hard for me to even, I think, sometimes actualize the value that I bring or the role that I play, which is just like at times vibe check and at times like
Yeah.
understand the validity or authenticity of something. And I think that even in today's day and age, if I just take the hobby, for example, how 99% of things that you see or content is about how much something costs or how much something was made off of something. and I, or when it comes to businesses, what their valuation is compared to what they do or why anyone gives a F or why someone
Yeah.
might collect something. And when it comes to you and the stuff that you're into and the way that you approach it, from the second I first saw it, I just loved it and enjoyed it. And the way that you speak about this stuff. Obviously, there's an end thing that might be okay. How do you productize your newsletter? How do you market yourself better? How do you make sure you have deal flow to broker things, those types of things. Those are all downstream from what I would say the main thing, which is a passion and interest, a curiosity, and like a yearning to learn and
Yeah.
speak. And so the foundation's there. And I come across so much that is only about that last part,
Yeah.
and I just have no time for it. It just like breaks my brain. And so from the first second I saw what you're up to, and I know the long journey that you're going to continue to be on is fun. So now we've
That's
given each other
awesome.
flowers, and then we finally got out there. We talked about playing golf for a long time. We had literally like a gift from the heavens in terms of we got out on a Wednesday, which not many people our age are able to play golf on a Wednesday. Beautiful day, caddy, beautiful course, played some good golf, and talked cards and sports and our love of 3 and 4 Penn State.
Yeah, it is funny, like how similar we are in so many ways. Like you and I standing next to each other, we have a similar body shape. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
both Penn State alum. We both love sports cards. We've had a lot of similar views on just like how we go about life. I before this interview we're doing now, I went back and watched a couple interviews that you had done in the past, and I read an interview that Vayner published, somebody that you had done, and the answers that you gave there reflected a lot of what we were talking about on the golf course. And if we have some time, I'd love to run through a couple of your
Yeah.
points. They
Yeah.
spoke to me. I just really feel like there's a lot there. When, I think about what I want to first kind of give you a platform to share with my audience who might not have come across your background yet. Talk about just real high level what your career has been at Vayner to this point. I know you shared with me on the golf course, but
Yep.
tell me about your first role at Vayner
Yep.
to where you are today, and would
So I'll
love to ask
speed
you
run it
a
through it a
question.
little bit. I
Yeah.
graduated Penn State in 2013 as a hotel restaurant institutional management. It was pretty much it's an applied business degree. I grew up working in restaurants. I actually just saw something recently. Someone was talking about how working in restaurants should be a prerequisite for everyone. I love hospitality. I love service. I think it teaches you a lot about yourself. I think it teaches you a lot about how to engage in a customer. It teaches you a lot about how when it comes to selling something, the customer's always right. If someone doesn't like your shit,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do about it, and your goal should be to either find out how do you fix that or realize that your customer, not everyone likes Persian food. That doesn't mean you got to be pissed at them because they don't like your food. You know what I
Right.
mean? Some
Yeah.
people don't like pizza. You can't yell at them because they don't like pizza. Either double down on people that do or make an alternative option, right? Service and hospitality teaches you these things. If you have a hotel and someone comes in and says the room's too hot, next person comes in and says the room's too cold, guess what? They're both right, even if it was the same exact temperature. Teaches
Right.
you a lot about yourself, right? So hospitality, fast casual was all the rage. Chipotle had a line around the block. I always think of trying to zig when everyone is zagging, and every one of my colleagues were going to work at Marriott. I call it Olive Garden, the holding company that owns
Yeah.
Olive Garden and some of those other big chains. But like degree into like middle management around the country, and I went and took a job at a place called the Taco Truck, which was one brick and mortar fast casual location and a food truck. And I got to open a restaurant out in Morristown. And about a couple months in, I was like, I don't want to do this. All I want to do is the branding and the marketing and use social and what's going on with the internet to get people to come in. I Inventory in the fridge is not my thing, and dishes
Yeah.
definitely like I'm gonna go crazy. So the guy was an entrepreneur connected me. Thing leads to another. I get an interview and I land at VaynerMedia, the upstart social media agency run by Gary Vaynerchuk, loud talking, fast talking, immigrant from Belarus that started talking about wine on the internet. And I was assigned to be the community manager for Brisk Iced Tea. They all know Brisk Iced Tea. All of a sudden, I'm 22 and I just got a job in the city. I walk in 50 cents playing on the Sonos, and I'm coming up with concepts for Brisk to post on their Facebook page. Like, this is pretty sweet. This is
Yeah.
rad. 220 or so people at the company at the time. It's now 2,300 globally. I think there was 3 offices in the US. We now have Singapore, London. I'm going to Dubai tomorrow night to do some work over there. We have Australia. It's grown pretty wildly. Through the course of that time, I then became, after about 6 months, I got to know Gary and his brother AJ through playing basketball competition. Like we just loved competing, and that meant we were going to become friends. And I got to be AJ's assistant, which I view as a role back into service, back into hospitality, get as close to the sun as possible, learn as much as possible, and do whatever the duty calls to put AJ into the best position to do his job, is how I view that. 2 years goes by. I was going to move to London to help open our office there, having all the conversations, going down the path of the visa. And Gary, one late night, is like, hey, have you thought, I'm looking for actually someone to be my assistant. Would you want to be mine? I'm like, yeah, sure. Another 2 years doing that, anything and everything you can imagine, 24/7 job, always on, always available, like real deep service. And, Gary's day, he's probably meeting with, on top of at that time, which was probably 1,200 employees, he's probably having 30 to 35 meetings, calendar invites, and every single one of those people is a massive meeting for them, whether it's a financial opportunity from investment, whether it's their boss and a career conversation, whether it's a social media collaboration that might put them on the map. Everyone was the most important client, the most important person of the day, and I had to treat and act that way. That role then evolved into what we started to talk about was relationship management, because I had then got to know all of his, our biggest clients, all these creators in the world, all of our employees. Gary's fame was growing. When I first started with him, he had about, I think, 10,000 followers on Instagram. He was getting to a place with 6, 7 million early on. He's now at north of 10. And so Gary's also someone that would give a lot of advice, do things for people with no, he's like, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a mensch is the word, or like he was just in the business, the godfather in a lot of ways of just like favors and helping. And I would help facilitate a lot of those things. That then came kind of my full-time role. And then COVID hit, and we launched something called 1:37 p.m., which we acquired a business, PureWow, women's lifestyle media company. And then we wanted to launch the male version, which was our first foray into like, how do we take Gary Vee, the human, the brand, the cultural phenomena, put that into a brand that's outside of a human, use it as a platform, tell stories about what's happening in culture, startups, Web3, everything. And I took over that platform and started running a media company. I was the general manager of a media company called 1:37 p.m. that was producing content on .com, anywhere from like 5 to 10 articles a day. Plus socials across all platform, podcasts, etc., events, and took that. What started with 12 went down to 6 in COVID, and at one point was like 43 employees. I was overseeing that team. Did that for about 2.5, 3 years, until just kind of like in my career, I felt I wanted to get back to working directly with Gary on his brand, and about 2.5 years ago moved back over to kind of take this role as what we call VP of Core Relationships. Yeah. I then scaled up a little bit of team of about 5, which is pretty much to map and keep an eye on all things culture and relationships that matter to Gary and our businesses, multiple businesses, whether that's our hospitality business, VCR, whether that's his fund in Vayner Fund, Vayner Capital, whether that's his personal brand, or whether that's our clients at VaynerMedia. How do they engage in something like Coachella? How do we make sure there are new content creators coming to our restaurants to make content, to put that out? And that is by and large what I do now, is spend time on partnerships, collaborations, business development for Gary himself personally, his kind of internet persona brand, Gary Vee, his holding companies, and then our advertising agency at large.
Yeah, that's an insane career track to have at the age that you've had. Obviously, you consumed quite a bit of information and experiences in that time. I think about what that must have been like at the age you were when you were his, assistant
Yeah.
24/7. It was a pretty intense job, yeah. Can you think
Yeah,
back?
for sure. For
Right.
sure. Very intense. And just an immense amount of learning about being just operating at high level, I think,
Yeah.
frankly. Like focus and distractions. But I was also young, like 25, living with my boy in the city. Like
Right. You were willing to just,
life was good. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
working, end of day, doing email from 11 p.m. to 2 in the morning with, West Coast NBA on. Like, there's a
right.
lot I'd probably do to go back to those times. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, as that relationship has evolved now for a decade, how is your relationship with Gary different now than it was then?
Um, I think it's almost like anything. We kind of are symbiotic in the sense of less conversation has to happen to achieve the same results. My role in less of absorbing and learning and now deploying those learnings, if you will,
Yeah.
when it comes to managing or mentoring or being able to go, like, again, I'm going to Dubai tomorrow night. I'm actually going for a card show and some other meetings. And like, there's just the trust factors through the roof and the understanding of what I'm looking to accomplish and what is of value is just sped up. And so just an evolution in impact and where value can be brought as opposed to kind of in the weeds day to day. Because for me, like, I think a lot of people look at jobs or roles as like you do a job, you get paid, and it's this very transactional nature. But when you're in a position where you're learning and just taking in a lot of different things that are happening, that's also another factor to it. And I think you spend so much time doing that. I've now have that ingrained and hard coded into my life in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
now I can spend that time the time deploying it back out.
That's awesome, man. I mean, when you're around him as much as you are that for that time of your life, like that, the way that that's been downloaded into your head, you're almost, I mean, it's mutually beneficial. Obviously, for him, in a lot of ways, you're like an extension of his brand, the way
Yeah,
he,
we think about it like the Nick Saban coaching tree.
yeah, yeah,
Like these things are real, and there's reason like it's or the PayPal mafia they
yeah,
talk about.
super interesting.
So like that is, and we believe that and we think that, and that is why I went through what I went through and the training and the mentorship for so many years. And now that's why it's, core relations. It really, we exist to help scale and be in places and spaces as a representative, not only of Gary, but as ourselves.
Yeah.
But through that process, it's almost like a fast track to learning a lot of those things.
It's really cool. I mean, for me personally, like he's probably heard it 1,000 times. I'm no different than so many other content creators that have been born out of the last 5 years. But I met Gary once or twice. He wouldn't know who I am, but I think I'm excited for one day to be in a position to get to tell him thank you for pushing me and motivating me and making myself believe in this whole thing that we're doing now. I think like he's inspired a lot of people, and I'm incredibly grateful for him, for you, for everybody on your team that's helped make, this happen because the social media revolution that's occurred over the last 10
Yeah.
years in terms of like the individual creator and uh, it was very hard to see when he first started talking about it and seeing it. And then there's there's a one piece to actually being able to see it and say it, but then to execute it and get other people to execute it.
Yeah.
It's a multifaceted thing that he's brilliant with. So I wanted to, I love this interview that was published on VaynerMedia between it looks like somebody you work with and just asking you about your 11 years at the company. And I mean, some of this stuff just hit home to me, and I'm sure these were lessons that you've learned not just from being around Gary, but just you and the, wins that you've had. I loved this one. This will remind you of our conversation we had at the end of the round last week. Uh, Somebody asked you, how was your approach to creativity evolved? You said, the only way to innovate is by actually doing. It's easy to talk about ideas, but until you execute, they're just theories. Whether it's launching Card Talk or testing AI and content creation, you learn by getting your hands dirty. For example, watching Nick create viral content himself while running a massive portfolio shows me the value of staying connected to work. And the title is just do the thing. You're all about just put it out there and execute and, nothing gets accomplished until you jump in. And I loved that. The other one I wanted to share with you that I thought was great was you talking about your experience journaling, especially earlier in your
Hmm.
career.
Hmm.
Um, I are you a fan of Stoicism? Do you
Yeah,
follow a
yeah,
little bit? Because
very much so. Yeah, Ryan Holiday's done a great job with all that. Yeah, very much.
I
I stay in tune with that. Um,
I
and
think journaling and that stoic practice has been a huge impact on my life. And the way that you kind of talked about, you know, this was the top quote from this. You said, "Seek discomfort." You talked about in my first year, I would journal every morning, reminding myself to do something uncomfortable, whether it was introducing myself to a stranger in the office or sending a bold email. I wanted to build the muscle of seeking discomfort. Growth doesn't come from staying in your comfort zone; it comes from pushing boundaries.
yeah.
I
Yeah, and
love
it can
that.
sound cliche, like, but back to like I think a lot of when I have conversations like this, we haven't gone into like hard stuff yet, but when I'm asked about my career in my 20s and those types of things, like I just believe that the equation of like getting a job and getting your salary and then doing the job, like there's so much more to get out of what you're doing and you have to frame your mind around that. And so yeah, I was commuting in and I would just force myself, like really force myself to, and I guess I'm not a big goal setter. I don't do 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, like those types of things. I like to plan, like look at my calendar and think, but I don't do like where do you want to be in 5 years because I think things change so rapidly and it's hard to like put that up. But yeah, just like if you're working in an office place or if you're gonna wake up and like what is the thing that you don't that makes you feel weird? Yeah. I was just listening to this Huberman podcast today. It's like the weirder you feel about something, the more you should be wanting to do it because
I
that's
love
just
that.
like the resistance that you're getting. The thing that keeps coming to mind that you know you should do, it's because it's right and it's harder to do it. But like early on, I knew I'm good at chatting with people and talking with people and an office setting or a new job can be intimidating or a new girlfriend with the family, like whatever.
Yeah.
Like you got to do the thing. And for me, writing it down was a way of when I would then end the day. I don't have the same type of commute, but on the train home, if I didn't do it, I would just be like, "You're an asshole." Like you're not holding yourself accountable to things. So that was
Yeah.
yeah, that was something and that helped me get to know a lot of people, which put me in the position ultimately that I'm in today because I met someone, we bonded over the Yankees. That person ended up being Gary's assistant. Gary needed an extra person for basketball. I got the call. I didn't want to wake up at 4:30 to play, but I knew it was the right opportunity. Fuck it, do it anyway. My mom was willing to wake up and drive me. All of a sudden, I build a relationship, you know?
That's so cool, man. And yeah, I vibe with that really heavy, the seeking discomfort piece. And, I talk about do the hard thing all the time. I think that's great. And I think a lot of that comes from that stoicism philosophy as well. I want to switch to card talk. And you and I both have a lot in common in that we have that collector gene. And, you know, I want to hear about what the experience has been for you as a collector. Um, I assume you collected as a kid and it evolved. Did you stay through it even in that time period where everyone goes away, or did you take a break from it as well?
So for me, what I would say is my whole life, like I collect. My mom is a big collector. And
Okay.
what's funny is that like I didn't really I think 2016, 17, look, we're 13, 14, 15 years into the iPhone and to your point of like this revolution, like it's still so early. I think about just like the customer base or the audience is so big. But I wasn't like talking or thinking about collecting in the same way. Whereas I'm weird and if people that know me would say that I'm weird. And my mom, we got to travel a good bit, but like tchotchkes are a big thing and mementos are a big thing. But for me, I always have collected my tickets. For my whole life, I've collected
Huh.
tickets to everything that I've gone to and boarding passes and things of that nature. So here's a ticket. This is 2018. I have some at PSA. This is like Knicks ticket, Yankees ticket from this is 2019. So these are newer. I just submitted some from '01 playoffs. This is my train ticket from Earl's Court in London. This is like a pamphlet from Tivoli Gardens in Denmark. Again,
And
like
so
I like I,
you were collecting this stuff even as a kid though. Like you kind of had this thought, like I want to keep these these tickets
moments.
as
For me, it's like
yeah.
memories,
Right.
right? Yeah, this is what is this? This is a match ticket. No, Santa Azor. This is €2 from something in Spain. And that's
Yeah.
what journaling started to become. Was like
Okay.
for me, I just like to collect memories. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go deeper for you. Uh movie tickets, um Rangers Town, ticket from the Phantom of the Opera. With my dad's name on it. $73, March 11th, 2015.
Yeah.
I have this weird rock that I always laugh about. I was like in the park one day and like this rock was sitting there and it looked like it had a smiley face on it. And I picked it up and then when I got home, I put the date on the back of it with Sharpie and it just sits on my desk. So like I've always collected things. And for me, what's funny is like now my favorite things to collect from this card perspective, because I like to
Yeah.
collect art. I like to collect mementos when I travel. But when it comes to cards, I collect first edition Pokemon 1999 game stuff. But what's funny is like when I had them as a kid, it wasn't so much about collecting as it was as connecting, if you will. What's funny is the game and Pokemon inherently has this like very meta nature to it, whereas the theme of Pokemon is collecting Pokemon. I don't know
Yeah.
if that makes sense to you. Like the
You're
game,
trying to collect them all. You're trying to get
correct. Like the tagline is like collect them all. So the story that you follow is of this dude, Ash, who's collecting Pokemon and the way in which he does that. So like, but I didn't view it. I wasn't a collector of it. I just enjoyed it, and it was about connecting to humans. And like your friends did it, so you would do it so
yeah.
that you were in the mix with them. Otherwise, you're the kid that's left out, or
Right.
And I was into video games. We were all into video games, and I had a ton of video games. But we weren't collecting video games. Now you get them sealed and you collect them. But for me, again, it's about memories really, and then I think the next place of where it goes, which is started where it started to get fun, and why I love the way that you approach it, and my inherent collecting strategy as a form of investment, which is like, okay, then you can start to layer on this storytelling, collecting of memories, which drives demand against what PSA has done and what Beckett, I guess, really was about early on, and what engraving and encapsulating is you can start to create a inventory and scarcity and market
Right.
dynamics around, these items that
Yeah.
have a fixed supply, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the grading companies have created like a legitimate commodity market out of sports cards. And, I put out a piece of content today talking about PSA just recently hired a new CFO who
Yeah.
has a financial background. He was most recently at Circle, who just IPO'd this year.
Yeah. Huge IPO.
And what that tells me is that they're doubling down on this becoming a financial asset and, potentially putting this on some sort of blockchain or commoditizing sports cards further. Uh,
Yep.
I don't think it's a secret that PSA will likely go public again. And this guy helped bring Circle public. So most likely, that's why they were attracted to this hire as well. But regardless of the fact, I love collecting for that emotional attachment as well. I think everybody kind of gets drawn to it and can remember collecting whatever those pieces are, if they're tickets, if they're baseball cards, whatever, at previous times of their life. And there's always a nostalgia factor about going back in time, and that oftentimes brings joy. I
I
mean,
always tell people when they come at me about collecting, I think it's a very funny thing. I think everyone collects now, and when people are like, I don't collect, I'm like, just go to your iPhone and look at your photos.
yeah,
Open your photos. That's what you're doing when you're walking. Everyone has a camera in their pocket right now, and no one looks at them. No
right,
one, people look at 5% of the photos that they ever take, especially if you don't post anything online. But you're
right.
collecting them. You're doing
Yeah.
that on purpose.
Yeah. It's a very instinctual habit that people have, and I think it takes its forms in different ways. I agree that's a form of collecting. I collect a lot of older baseball cards. You and I both have kind of connected on trying to overlap some of the things that we're collecting and seeking financial gain from it as well. And I want to spend some time talking about this. You can collect these things for the nostalgia factor and the fact that you have this emotional connection to these pieces that you're collecting, but there's that additional benefit that you can financially gain from it. And you and I both see, especially when it comes to truly scarce assets that have an increasing demand versus a fixed or oftentimes shrinking supply, that will create price creation. Like we're going to see values rise. And I think that has been like a really fun piece for me to dive more into it because when I was first learning about this and building my platform, that's all I was doing. I was educating the audience. I was talking about vintage sports cards. I was talking about how much of a mature market exists for this stuff, how there's liquidity. It's not perfect. It's very inefficient still
For
today
sure.
of how
Yeah.
fractionalized all of the marketplaces are. There's not like one centralized exchange where this stuff is trading. Because if that were to happen, then you'd have way less ranges in terms of a quote comp on where one sells versus another. Because right now, so much of where stuff is selling for is based on the set of eyeballs that that auction house has, or what eBay has, or what that card show has.
Yep.
So for that reason, like this is just an exciting space because it's growing, it's inefficient, there's a market, there's liquidity, there's the attachment emotionally, but then there's the financial gain perspective, and it's just this one really freaking exciting cocktail of what the hobby has become.
Yeah.
So I want to bring this up. I want to show the chart of the S&P's performance to Pokemon and sports cards. Because Tyler, you mentioned you're a big Pokemon collector.
Yep.
You've been in it a while and you've seen where the market has been going, and it's
Hmm.
it's been absolutely it's been bonkers, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do,
It's a good
do,
word for
do
you.
you do you think this is sustainable, or where do you see the market?
Um,
Where do you see it right now? And where do
some
you see
areas. Some
yeah.
areas. I see,
Yeah.
what do I see right now? I see some hysteria. There's so many factors to it. I think that 20 years ago was 05. 05.
Hmm.
Um, man, I would love to know the size of eBay. Okay, we were dialing up to go on eBay at this point. And most eBay users, to my understanding, were, I don't know how many cards were being graded off the top of my head in '05. I don't know if you know when Beckett first really started slabbing up cards and whatnot. But to me, what speaks to that chart more than anything is access. And what I mean by that is things are now, information and access has been democratized. Still to this day, not everyone can just open up their phone and buy shares of the S&P 500. It is harder to do that than it is to go on eBay and buy a Pokemon card. And so I think that and even as blockchain and the tech, like that's where we're going with all of this once this internet stuff got out the bag, is just like if everything can be priced and commoditized and the information gets out, then like where are you putting your money and like why? And like there's this value investing that comes in and like like this old dodgy like, oh, I'm just gonna put it in a CD for however much time, like because I'll get the returns. Like people don't, the era has changed a little bit, and it's a little bit more of a risk on environment. And what I say in that is just like, as someone that's 34, 35, probably looking to buy their first home, we used to drive around, brother, and it was like, if that's $1 million house, like you used to know, like
Huge
that
house.
person's crib is $1 million crib.
Yeah.
I mean, to like, I grew up in Essex County, New Jersey. Like you want a house in Montclair? It's $1 million house, more or less.
Right.
That wasn't the case when I was 12, 11 years old. So like, I think some of that, my point being is just like, I think the financial aspect of it, I first got on eBay, I think in the early 2000s because my mom would buy Royal Copenhagen China from Denmark, where she spent most of her childhood. And now things are collectible and things are flexible. And what I mean by flexible is not bendy, but you can flex it. Because
Uh,
for a long period of time, if you wanted to show off your fine china or you wanted to show off your sports card collection, you had to have a dinner party or you
hmm
had to travel to some meetup at the local community, or there would be the sports card night at the local bowling alley, some shit
Yeah.
like that. Now you just go on Instagram and show it. And you can, and people then are like, I want to do that. And all they have to do is go to eBay and buy the thing. That wasn't the case. Even to like you and I were alive. If I wanted to know the Yankees score from last night, I had to wait till the paper came out the next day.
Yeah.
Like in our lifetime. So what I
Right.
just mean is like, okay, now I have the ability, I have the option. The optionality has exploded. Nostalgia, we're all yearning for yesteryear. And there's real commoditized data that allows these things to be investable. Yeah, I think it's, and I think it's going to keep going. I think there will be more volatility, for
Yeah.
sure, more volatility because people come in and come out. These are less seasoned investors, and people want bigger returns, and those things are keep getting stretched. Like the middle isn't as interesting anymore. The other
Yeah.
one, like people are like, I'll be dead broke and make a million rather than just like
Right.
that's become unsexy in a lot of ways. But but it's definitely real. And what you're doing, what's different than all these different parts of the hobby. What do I think? When most people right now are like Pokemon, I don't just like you don't collect Luka Doncic cards. I have no interest in modern Pokemon or what most people would describe as today's Pokemon.
Yeah.
I like I see the demand. Pokemon's coming up on 30 years. We're pretty much in it. You can debate, but 30 years since the first ever American card game, 1999 Pokemon game that really, I think, kicked it off. Obviously, the Game Boy games did early. You're coming up on 30 years. You can't beat time. And who was it? Larry Doby, Ty
Yeah.
Cobb.
Yeah.
Their story is cemented.
Yeah. 100%.
They aren't. They're not going to get themselves into bad things. They're not going to have a night like Otani that all of a sudden brings in crazy demand, drives the value up, and then all of a sudden it comes down a little bit
Sure.
because that wears off. So for
Sure.
me, when I think about Pokemon and our approach and what you and I have really started to enjoy is like, okay, everyone in the world's talking about Pokemon. You see this everywhere. You could go buy a recent box for $500, or I can buy this card right here that's coming up on 30 years old that's in a Gem Mint 10 that has like 400 of them. The
Right.
volatility will be less, but I'm thinking long term. And as the people that are into it now get more disposable income, or the 35 to 45 year olds that this was in their wheelhouse realize
Right.
that they got some extra capital that they want to take a shot on, I think they're going there, not modern repacks in hopes
Right.
to turn $10 into $1,000 or turning 200 into 2,000 and being okay with losing 2,000. To me, that's gambling.
You've said a lot in that, and there's a lot I think to unpack with it because it's so true. And I think some people might subconsciously recognize it, but they don't ever unpack it. Let's start at the access point with the collectibles market growing so much thanks to the innovation and technology that's been put into the market over the last 20 years. I love
Hmm.
that take. I love that the growth of eBay and these social commerce platforms have allowed for the individual to become an extension, to become a business of themselves. And that transaction, there's less friction for us to be able to engage with one another. So with that increased liquidity and access, that gets more participants in the market, that drives more demand. That makes sense to me. I love that. That flex piece, I totally think is real. And whether or not it's driving 10% an increase in valuation or five, I think it's there. The thing that I also think that is driving this market higher is actually like it's just a high level view of the economic landscape we're in right now. Rebecca, if you could bring up that chart that shows the gold performance in the 2020s, I think that Pokemon sports cards, especially high level quality memorabilia pieces, they are becoming a sleeve in investors' portfolios. I know this.
Hmm.
I just brokered a 52 mantle PSA 8 for north of 1.1 million.
Yep.
I know that the investment thesis behind purchasing that card was for an alternative asset sleeve in his portfolio. He wanted to allocate a certain amount of capital to this. He felt that way. I've got probably 5 or 6 different clients right now, all with that thesis.
Hmm.
And this is another chart that shows the appetite right now for alternatives. If you look at the run that gold has been on since 2020, it's outperformed the S&P. There are decades in which gold did not. But right now, given the amount of capital that's in the system, a couple of weeks ago we spoke about this on the show. There's $7 trillion right now in money market funds that are just sitting there. So just cash,
Hmm.
just sitting there. The economic environment is hungry for anything that we can invest into. And that's part of the reason why the market has gone up so much is because of, just the amount of capital that's been in the system. That's part of the reason that I think sports cards and high-end Pokemon has gone up. I think that's
Hmm.
why gold has gone up. I think
Hmm.
that's also why you and I spoke a little bit about you love Bitcoin. You've been dollar
Hmm.
cost averaging into Bitcoin for however long you mentioned. That whole trade is one big thing being pushed by this same overall trend
Hmm.
that people like alternative assets. And I think what we are seeing is adoption of these sports cards. These are not just kids trading cards or toys. Like this is an actual store of value. And now that we have so many of these transactions on record that show that this is continuing to grow in value, we have the data, we have the access. It's going to
Yeah.
keep. So I love just making comparison to gold. We talked about this on the course last week with gold and crypto, and I think that is such a big deal. And I think like you talk about early stage, I think we're early stage in adoption because I speak to people who kind of give me the side eye if I mention to them what Pokemon is doing. I
Yeah.
personally don't have the interest in Pokemon. I was a baseball card kid. I never owned a single Pokemon card. So I don't get it. I don't have that attachment to it.
Yeah.
Very much of the belief that like invest into what you know, buy what you like. And I
Yep.
don't like it. So I'm not going to make myself be somebody different than I am. But there's a shit ton of people out there that are like you that had those positive experiences with Pokemon. And it's a very easy story to say that, look, this stuff has emotional attachment. There's a fixed supply, there's an increasing demand, and this is an asset class. And we
Yeah.
have data to show it. So I love this conversation. I think more and more people need to get engaged with this conversation. And I love that there's people with your pedigree and background that are seeing it because it just adds more validation to this thing that I've been sitting in this office for the last few years, being like, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well,
I love
it's also relatively new. Like
that.
when you talk about gold, when you talk about Bitcoin, when you talk just like optionality and the age of the internet and the amount of information and the amount of storytelling,
Yeah.
the way at which this can all travel is very new. And so whether it's on the upside or the downside, what we also know is probably a lot of your clients, they're looking to diversify.
Yeah.
And it may be for upside, but it might also be for stability. I mean, there because of the backdrop of the amount of information that is going on. If you just think back to how today's, like just the current events of today's times would travel around the world, like you're getting updates not long ago, brother, like 3 generations ago, like someone had to get on a ship and like get
Yeah.
over there to give the fucking update.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we got tariffs announced on Thursday and deaded by Monday. And
Right.
so like people don't know what's going on. And
Right.
like all of a sudden, like a 1952 card that was made 75 years ago that like can go up 12% over the next 6 months or year is actually a diversification play, not a high risk play, because you might not know what's happening, or you might be sick of all the information that's going, or the debt that exists. Like, so there's arguments I just continue to go back to as someone that grew up first loving video games, then loving social media and the internet, crypto. Like, I was a I was a freshman in college in 2009. Like Bitcoin was 1 cent. It wasn't even a cent. It
Yeah.
wasn't even a penny. It's $110,000. Oh, by the way, and most people that don't like it are shitting on it right now for being down over 10% in the last 10 days. So like what is possible? And I'm not a financial guy. I just mean what's funny out, and I go all the way back, which is like what I'm very fascinated by right now is like what is considered money. And one of the things when I first started working with Gary was as someone that came over from Belarus and whose father spent most of his life in Belarus, or my fiance whose mother pretty much lived in post-World War Poland, or whose babcia grandma who I've spent real time with 94 who lived in communism. Like bartering and trade and what was money like around the world is a very unique concept.
Yeah.
And so like I'm going to trade you this corn that I just grew for that silk that you have used to be how things got done.
Yeah.
Because I'm good at this and you're good at that and boom. And that's the thing with the crypto and like where do you store your value? Like gold forever is like it's finite. There was a gold rush. These things happened.
So
We've knew about the gold rush forever. San Francisco 49ers, the whole nine. And today, year over date, gold is up. I don't even want to say it wrong, but a lot of money.
is your point that we have evolved in like how we view
Assets.
stores of value and assets?
Correct.
Like that has
Correct.
changed over time.
Correct.
I think that's interesting and a fair.
Because you don't need the chokehold for exchange anymore. These are new phenomenons.
Yeah.
When I bought Apple stock when I was 16 years old, when I saw the first announcement, my godfather gave me a $500 bond when I was born. When I turned 16, that was right around the time of iPhone. I was maybe younger. My dad had custody of that money. We watched the first Steve Jobs keynote for the first iPhone in my bedroom on the Apple that went like that. My dad put the $500 into Apple.
You still have it or what?
I don't because
Oh, you sold?
I don't, but I turned it into sports cards and Bitcoin, if I'm being honest.
All right,
I don't own a
that's fine.
single equity actually outside of my 401k. Um,
Interesting.
yep, which is
Can we dive into that? Do you have a second
yes, I just want to finish up my thought.
Okay. Okay.
To do that trade to buy that Apple stock, what my dad had to do from like a clearance and then cost. It cost, I'm pretty sure this was,
Yeah,
but
I
like
mean,
on a bad day, it cost $50 to execute the trade.
I think
So
that
at times he used to tell me it's not even worth. You're getting 10% scalped of just the trade.
Yeah. I think that that friction has gone down since
It
then.
has.
Like Robinhood.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That friction doesn't exist anymore, which now means we can do many, many, many things.
Can you tell me the allocation that you see sports cards fitting into your own portfolio and crypto as well? Can you talk to me a little bit? You just said you don't own US stocks outside your 401k, and I find that interesting. I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. I guess in some ways I'm like Bitcoin pilled.
Okay.
That's happened. That
Yeah.
happened sometime in 2019.
Okay.
And so I look at things like this. It's like concentrated bets, diversificate, like safety is diversification and like risk is depth.
So it's a risk
I
reward thing. You just
In
want,
some ways, yeah, in some ways. And I'm going through my life now where that will start to change a little bit. But then I also just think about when I do the math, like if I just look at hurdle rate, like Bitcoin's been the best investment since its inception. So like until something shows me better, why not? And I'm comfortable with the volatility in and around it. And I sit on cash, I save cash, rainy day stuff.
yeah.
And then I have my 401k. And I spent a lot of time investing when like Robinhood first came out. Uh, and Apple was, I'll go back actually this way, Gordy. My whole life, I'm very straightforward. And it maybe started with college. I applied to one college. It was Penn State. It was probably a bad idea because I applied in November. I didn't find out till February. I was a good student. I got good grades. I could have went to a plethora of different schools. It's the only place I wanted to go to.
Yeah.
I have had two girlfriends before I met my fiance. I've worked the same job for 13 years.
Hmm.
I bought and held Apple for an incredibly long period of time. My best friend and best man at my wedding is going to be my cousin, who I met the first day I was born.
Right.
I just, it's not like I don't have a trading mindset because I do when it comes to sports cards. But I have ADD in some areas of life, but I tend to just be
You've got
singularly
conviction on
focused.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some level.
And so it's funny, like I did put like 10 grand into Tesla stock, like uh I want to say like 6 months ago. And I think like 9 days later, I was like, I don't want to deal with this. And
Yeah.
Musk and Trump were like going at it in the White House. I'm like, I'd rather just own
Right.
Bitcoin,
Yeah.
And so there's certain things like what that I am like, okay, starting to think like, where do I put some plays into? But I've just enjoyed this long haul of Bitcoin from an investment standpoint because nothing has really come to me as to something that makes more sense. I did see Apple just hit all-time high. I do actually believe in long-term value of Apple because if it is where it is and they haven't figured out AI, it's got a real shot. Um,
I love
Energy
that.
is another area. But again, I'm like, how do I put enough conviction in there that it's a risk on play versus just diversifying and
Yeah. I honestly, I'm just fascinated to be in the mindset of somebody because I think like it's a quality that people have when they love Bitcoin in terms like they love the math equation of it. And I think like that focus on scarcity and the asset of it is something that you can see getting applied to other verticals in your life. And it also, I pick on your willingness to take on risk is something that a lot of other people wouldn't do. I think
yeah, I'm really into like we talked about a little bit, just this concept of money. Like where did it come from? Like what the US dollar, okay? 1913, I think federal notes started.
yeah,
100, what's that, 115 years ago? Just
yeah,
think about how much can change so fast.
right.
Okay. And then where do we go from here? Right. And like the real story of like why not is just like fear and like why should it not work? Because
Yeah,
the system will go down or it's not real or the guy comes out. Like,
right,
what's the difference between the president of the United States stood up there, the US dollar was backed by gold that sat in a warehouse somewhere. And then one day it
right.
wasn't anymore.
Right. And then that's just like the new normal. And
Yeah.
your willingness to like swallow that risk in this adoption period is the reciprocal reward that you get from it. Like the more risk you take, the more reward you get. And if you're able to be comfortable with, there's a risk associated with this, but I've seen historical comparisons to this and we've adopted and changed through it. And I'm a believer of that. Like
Yeah.
you should get rewarded with if you've been buying since 2019, brother, you've been rewarded. That's freaking fantastic.
And I think
So
that one of the things with the amount of information we consume, again, one of the things I love about you is
yeah,
like, I think life is also becoming about one journey of how much can you actually believe in your own conviction and then do something about it.
yeah. I like
Because because we all know what it is we believe and what we think we should be doing, and then everything else is trying to tell you why not
yeah.
for a million different reasons.
Right. Yeah.
But like you like vintage cards. You
Yeah.
don't like Pokemon, yet you just looked at a chart that shows you the returns on Pokemon.
Yeah.
And you could be spending all your time racking your brain as to why you're not making that move, but instead you're going deep on the thing that you believe and know is right. And you're seeing the compounding rewards of that.
Yeah.
And you need to actively go out of your way to not get off that lane.
I agree. Yeah, that's super hard to do in a world where like just the way the algorithms work right now, where they throw you so many different things and being an entrepreneur,
And
which
you know
is
what's the worst? The last thing, the
yeah,
worst is that if you move off of that, and you might because these larger sea changes happen, but if you move off of it and then 2 months or 2 years later, your thing fucking hits, you know what's gonna have you really in a fucked up spot? That.
yeah.
And you know what's
Yeah.
not going to have been worth it? Whatever margin you made going and doing the other
Going into
thing.
something new. I agree. And I feel like that's something that entrepreneurs deal with all the time is like, well, maybe I should do this thing. Like I've proven I can do it here, or like, can I do it there? And like sometimes the grass is not always greener and like chasing whatever that thing that is inside of you, whatever you have that most conviction for, like you said. I love that. So I do want to obviously I know we've been riffing for a while on this. I wanted to speak just really quickly too on Card Talk. It's back. I'm sure your listeners are pretty stoked about that. What's that journey been like for you getting that podcast, getting back out there, talking hobby? How's
It's
that?
good. It's good. It's an interesting, unique journey. I recently more or less got full control of the IP. Long story short, when we launched it, we were doing it under the umbrella of a media company that was out of our control. We built something that was amazing, that had its own temperament, that had its own chapter, its own kind of like epoch in the three of us. That 2018 to 2022-ish, 23 rise of cards in culture, a lot of acquisitions, launches every day, this person getting into cards, that person getting into cards. Logan Paul, the first conversation Logan Paul had about buying Pokemon cards was with me, Gary and me. And then I was texting him, Squirtle, this, and whatever. Next thing you know, he's buying $1 million cards. He's walking out, those types of things. The banter, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, all that was, which made Card Talk, was amazing.
Yeah,
We then sunset that for a variety of different reasons: marriage, kids, business, life, a lot of things. No love lost. We all love each other. We talk actively to this day.
that's great.
I want to do something more with it. And so through some conversations, got ownership of the brand. And where I'd say I'm at right now is kind of this personal journey of building the momentum back up in the brand with the listeners and finding the right. And I think you know this. It's like you just got to keep chugging along, chugging along, chugging along, and allow your destination to kind of become the thing and then go at it. And that's where I'm currently at right now.
Yeah,
I've probably put out 8 episodes consistently on Wednesday mornings. Predominantly, they are around proper football talk. I do it with a good buddy of mine that's in London who is like you for vintage sports and vintage baseball cards. He is about the knowledge of the game of soccer. He doesn't bring much sports card understanding to him, but he understands licensing and business. He works in that side of the world. So what I believe in Pokemon, and I believe in, and the thing we talked about, vintage non-fictional, but soccer. I think that market,
yeah,
proper football cards in general, the history of them are under exposed and underappreciated because I think it's a lot more of a global game than a US based game. And what's happened is card collect baseball, sports cards come from baseball. Baseball was birthed in the US. That is becoming all of what it is. SpongeBob's Topps Chrome is what it manifests into it now. That hobby and collecting is now going outward globally. And I believe as that expands outward globally, the rate of people that it's going to hit are going to say, oh, I want this Figo card, or I want
right.
this R9 card, or
100%.
I want the Maradona card, or I want Zinedine Zidane's card, or those types of things. And that, I believe, is a very open and inefficient space that matches one of my passions. And so that is what a lot of Card Talk has been to date, but I'm ruminating on some more interviews and approaching things how I like to do so.
That's great, man. That is such a strike zone. I mean, I totally see what you're pitching here. I think the soccer market is massive. It's the global game. And if you can just extrapolate out what has happened in the more, quote, mature sports card markets, like it will come for soccer. And I know that market's been hot for sure. And with the World Cup coming here next year, I think it'll continue to go higher. But I'm stoked for you on that journey, man. I think you're going to do a great job bringing that out. And yeah, I'm excited to watch it and learn more about it because, I'm a big believer in that market continuing to grow, which is super cool. So new episodes every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday.
Uh,
Right now, as audio, in the next 2, 3 weeks, it should be returning back to YouTube as a video podcast as well. And so that journey's been fun too, just like getting disciplined, getting my,
yeah,
procedures and processes in order. You know this. It's like you got to keep showing up, you got to keep getting the thoughts out there, you got to build the community, you got to provide value, you got to get people to make a decision to give a fuck to listen to what you have to say. And
that's the
that
stuff,
takes a lot of
man.
work.
Yeah, it is. Like that's the super hard part, and like you get so much fulfillment when you start to see some of that come together. Yeah, I won't because I think we could spend a full podcast episode talking about the non-sports stuff that we know
Yeah.
golfing. I would love to be able to have another conversation maybe on your podcast talking more about the growth that you and Gary see coming in non-sport. I want to at least give a plug for VeeFriends. And what's your do you have a title within VeeFriends, or is that just kind of sits under?
Not really. It sits within it all. Right now, I
Yeah.
spend most of my time on B2B hobby relations
Mhm.
and onboarding,
Okay.
telling people what we're up to, getting them to see if they have interest. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. We were just
Right.
at Comic-Con. We're building the lore. I was with Gary. We created VeeFriends about 5 years ago. Gary is a storyteller at
Right.
heart. That's what he's always been. That's what his most talented gift is, telling stories contextually that resonate with people all over the world.
Yep.
He's now turning that into something that he's always been passionate about his whole life, which is IP, GI Joe. You can talk about wrestling characters, you can talk about toys, you can talk about comic books. He knows it like it's the dictionary in his brain.
Right.
And he decided, F it. Rather than me talking about He-Man, I want to make my own fucking He-Man. And so he created VeeFriends. And we're about 5 years in. We're in the very early stages. We have less than 10 comic books that we've published, but we're starting to tell the story and build love and lore and following around the characters, which will then ladder back to the collectible side of it if all is said and done and works well. But that's
Mhm.
downstream to like the goal and what it exists for is to teach people a lot of the learnings that I've done, which is how to be a good human, how to balance wanting to murder your opponent because you're competitive and also having compassion for them the second the game ends, or understanding how to be a winner while also having soft skills and uh, being able to look across the aisle, frankly, and find, commonality amongst your differences. And that's what we're using VeeFriends for, because it's one thing if it comes from Gary and how he looks and feels, and it's one thing if it comes from Empathy Elephant and Patient Pig.
Yeah. I really think that's an underappreciated component to what this product is that there's such good intent behind what he wants the value of this to come from. Like the attributes he speaks about. I wish more people that, I feel like you were either a Gary Vee person or you're not. Like there are some people that just don't take the time to go under the hood if they like hear something or don't like the way he explains something. But the intent behind his product is so meaningfully good. And I love that. I hope this takes off and more people can take away some of the lessons that he speaks to. And it's not just a, you know, card commodity product in which he's benefiting financially from. I think he's always kind of had that challenge of like he has a massive audience and a ton of influence. So like if he wants to sell a product, yeah, he's going to sell it and financially gain from it. But
Mm-hmm.
if you see like a little bit deeper as well as to what he wants to build with it, like it's awesome, man. So yeah, I would love nothing more than see you guys succeed with it.
I appreciate it.
I've been cheering, him on since the beginning. Because like I said, he was a big influence in my life. When I started making content, it was in 2020. It was all about finance, had nothing to do with sports cards. And I did it because of a lot of his messaging. And I remember he started posting those sketches of VeeFriends, and I could
Yep.
see what he was doing before it even blew up. It's been fun, like following his journey and being a fan of his content and seeing it. So that's awesome, dude. And yeah, congrats on Card Talk. I can't thank you enough for spending so much time. I know we went a little longer than we initially
I love it.
anticipated, but the thing is, we could go even
We
longer
could keep,
if
I
we
could,
wanted to.
and we
So
should soon. We
yeah,
should.
for sure.
We'll keep it rolling.
We have another match. We gotta get on the calendar. I gotta show up, play better, put another card up on the line. Hopefully, I don't go 0-2. And then yeah, would love to talk more on your pod. If you could let my audience know where they can follow you on all your platforms.
Best places, I would say on Instagram, my handle's Tyler, just at Tyler.
Which is such a flex, by the way. Have you been offered like $1 million for that
I was
before?
offered that's probably something I fumbled, but I'm happy I have it at the end of the day, which was, yeah. Mm. someone was going to trade me Bitcoin for it. But that's
Wow.
neither here nor there. I love it. It's fun. Again, I love it because I get to connect with people all over the world,
That's a
and
pretty sick Instagram name.
it's pretty
At
special.
Tyler.
So
So,
yeah, there at Tyler on Instagram, find me there, and the rest you'll be able to tune into.
okay, super cool, man. Well, thank you again so much for tuning in to Gordy Bonker Show. Guys, if you like this episode, please be sure to subscribe and follow both me here on the Sports Card Nonsense YouTube channel, but also over on my channel at Bonkers Cards on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. And be sure to subscribe to the Bonkers Cards Club. I write weekly on my Substack at bonkerscards.substack.com. Guys, this has been another episode of the Gordy Bonker Show. Thank you again to our guest, Tyler Schmitt. I will see you guys next week.